Before we get into that, guys, I want to remind everybody that you can like and subscribe to get notifications for all of our coverage. We've got the Ultimate Guardians, Ultimate Browns, Ultimate 216, and Ultimate Cavs. And if you guys want and you're missing out on everything, you can sign up for our newsletter. And one last reminder for all of you today that Monday we are on at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. because we're going to be out at the Austin Carr Invitational for the golf field. Mikey McNuggets and all of us are going to go out there. It's going to be a good time, but don't forget we are on an hour earlier and off an hour earlier Monday. Don't miss it. And now I'd like to bring in our guest, Jered Goodwin.
Jered, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it. Draft 3 days away on Sunday, right? Today's Thursday, so 3 days away. We've been talking about the draft the last couple of days. Who do you, of the guys at the top, obviously there's maybe 3, 4, 5 different guys that could be considered for that top spot this year. Who do you like the most? Who do you think the Guardians should draft?
I think it comes down to 2 guys. I think it's Travis Bazzana or Charlie Condon. There's been a lot of talk over the last month about saving money, maybe posturing to get some prospects and build prospects. I don't think that's ever a bad decision. I think there is some guys in the 15 to 20 area that you could probably posture back and overpay and get 2 first rounders. But really, after doing all the research, this just comes down to 2 guys. It's Bazzana for me, or it's Condon. Bazzana, as we talk about Cleveland having their first 1-1, it would be the first second baseman ever to go 1-1. But it's just elite. Everything he does, he's a good runner. He's a way better than average fielder at second base. Throw out the premium position when you talk about his patience, the low strikeouts, and the pitch recognition. That's premium enough for today's game. And I think he's, those 2 are the fastest mover in the draft, but I think he's the fastest mover just because he's not going to have a position change or kind of work out at different positions to see if there is better value there. Condon's great. I think in so many drafts, it's not even close. He's the first guy. What he did in the SEC, the 37 homers, NCAA record. He did have back-to-back years doing this. He's done it with a wood bat. But I just think, the profile with the left-handed bat, a guy that already plays a position, he can play it well. Bazzana should be the pick.
Jered, I know you know a lot of these guys as they come up through the ranks. You work with Perfect Game, which starts profiling is not the right word, but you start building relationships with these guys at a younger age. What can you tell us about kind of the people that Condon and Bazzana are outside of just the players and the attributes they bring on the field?
Bazzana, being from out of the country, I don't have a lot of personal contact with him, but I have a ton of people that have been around him, and they say it's like off the charts makeup and toughness, which obviously goes into what I'm talking about when it's the number 1 pick. The scrutiny they're going to get from day one because they were that first pick is even so much different than going second. Everybody I talk to about Bazzana just talks about his toughness. Charlie Condon, I actually have a little bit of a history with. He was an uncommitted kid, got to know his coaches, was around him some, and he's another one that, he was going to go play football at one point. Quarterback mentality, football mentality. So he checks all the boxes as well. The other 2 guys I would kind of throw in the mix there would be Chase Burns and Jack Caglianone. Got to know them as preps pretty well. They were All-Americans for us. Chase Burns is the fiery guy. He's the guy that just shows the emotion, that wants to be there, wants to have the ball in his hand, checks the box, of that number 1 starter. Pitchers are obviously a little more risky, but I will say I always throw his name in this bucket because the Indians have one thing that they do really well when it comes to PD, and that's develop arms. They've done a great job over the years, young arms to college arms. So it wouldn't be out of the question that they, call to see if there is some sort of haircut to get him to build a prospects. And staying with this theme, if they think Jack Caglianone is a pitcher, his background is another one that everybody just says tough. He's the guy that, kind of pisses everybody off in the other dugout. And his teammates just want him to be the guy with the bat or the ball in the hand because they know he's not going to back down. And he's obviously put up those numbers. I think if there was a haircut situation there, they'd probably have to consider it.
When you look at those top 2 prospects that you have, How long do you think it will take them to make it into the majors? I mean, obviously everybody starts off AAA. How long do you think it takes them to make their major debut?
I think when it comes to Bazzana, he's probably the fastest mover. Him and Chase Burns. We just saw how quickly Paul Skeens got up there, being the top pitching prospect. I don't want to put them in the same category with what Paul Skeens has done, but Burns is certainly looks like the best guy and the most polished guy right now. So I think there's a road to get there, especially Cleveland needing arms. I mean, that's just the one thing. And the stuff's the stuff. The kid's been up to 100 miles an hour. He throws a ton of strikes. All that. I explained kind of why Bazzana was in that bucket, just because there is no positional change. The speed works, the defense works, and it's really the patience and pitch selection that help him. I think the other two are maybe a little further back, maybe in that next tier. Caglianone does swing and miss a ton. He's going to have to refine a little bit at the plate. They're going to have to decide if they want to have him pitch and hit. That's going to take a little longer because it's the same thing. Just coming back from an injury, the strikes were a ton better this year, but still has a little bit of a ways to go, but could be a legitimate, two-way type of guy with huge left-handed power. And Condon's just goes down to what position he's going to play. If it's me, I probably see if there's some more positional value there and give him a chance to play corner outfield. Maybe even test it out at third, just sniff around to see if it works. But if they were just to put him at first, I think it's a little bit faster of a track. But I think the other two are clearly the fastest to the big leagues.
Yeah, with Condon, it's interesting because obviously the Guardians have Jose Ramirez locked up for a long time, so he's the third baseman. They just acquired Kyle Manzardo last offseason. He's one of their top two prospects. He's played a little in the majors, but I think they look at him as the first baseman of the future. They don't have a right fielder, and they have Quan in left field. So right field seems to make the most sense, especially because even if he's a little behind Bazzana, it's not going to be that long. They're going to expect him to play in the big league somewhat soon. So it seems like right field, at least if they draft him, might make the most sense. How good do you think he could be out there?
I think he's undervalued as an athlete. I would say out of the corner outfield spots, Quan being in left, makes it a little more difficult. Left field seems to be the easier transition for guys that are kind of in between positions. But you're talking about a guy that was a really good high school quarterback. He's got really good body control. He's got good fluidity. I really have argued with some of the people that I've talked to on in discussions like this that I think he doesn't get enough credit for the athlete he is. But I do think it's going to take some reps out there, the nuances, the double cuts, where he's throwing, what he's doing. He does have a good baseball IQ. I'm not worried about it, but the game just gets faster. Even coming from the SEC, great. It's going to translate easily into A ball, A plus, somewhat into Double A. But when you get to Triple A in the big leagues, the game is just faster, and you need kind of some dirt, some dirt in your britches to be able to do that and not, have some deficiencies that lead to losses.
We've talked to a couple guys previewing this draft, and one name that gets brought up every once in a while is J.J. Wetherholt. We had Joe Doyle on yesterday who said, I don't see a giant gap between Wetherholt and Bazzana. He just was hurt all season. I'm curious, in your mind, is there a gap between those two in particular, and how do you view Wetherholt in terms of the top tier prospects in this draft?
I think he's just behind Bazzana just because the power, Wetherholt, I think, is definitely going to transition to second base. He looked better and was kind of the helium guy. But getting to see some of these guys play live, I just see a bigger power potential, in-game power that Bazzana, brings. And when you're talking about two second basemen, I think that's the difference maker with those two.
You think, but you talked before about Bazzana being the quickest to the big leagues. I mean, right now they got Andres Jimenez at second. He hasn't been hitting great the last 2 years, but they got him locked up. He could I would think the Guardians would consider moving him to shortstop next year, and because, like I said, I mean, you talk about him getting quick. I mean, we saw Wyatt Langford start this season in the big leagues. I would think, based on the way you're talking, that maybe at some point next year, even maybe by next June, there's a decent chance Bazzana could be in the big leagues. Is that too much of a stretch or no?
No, I don't. I think it's that polished, and what you're seeing now, this is a young person's league. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to get those guys up. You got to get the most value out of these guys that you can. The data is showing that at 30, 31 years old, there is a decline. Those guys aren't getting those 3, 4, 5, 6-year deals anymore. They're getting the 2-year deals. So these are the guys they want up. They want to groom them so that when they're starting to pay them at the end of or having to figure out if they're going to lock them up long term, they want a little younger now. They want to get that value out of them, and you're seeing. The guys that are ready to get a chance and to get to the big leagues, you're seeing them get a chance way sooner than they used to. And I just think this bat carries.
So with this being the Guardians' first overall pick in franchise history, we got to make sure that we get this 100% right, okay? Which one of these guys cannot bust? They will not bust. They will be something in your mind that you think will be
floor.
great. Safest floor.
Yeah.
I still think it goes down to those two. I think those are the safest bets to, let's say sign a contract. That's hard enough. You got to get to year 7 if you go through, your whole run to sign a contract. It's really hard, right? And I think those are the safest bets. The upside, I mean, if Burns ends up being a true number 1, you still had a lot of risk, drafting that pitcher. And if Jack, say he, gets 25 to 30 appearances a year for 5 or 6 years, and 25 or 30 home runs, like you got a multi-time all-star, in you. But the floor for Bazzana and Condon is just so much higher when you're talking about the Indians being ready to win and kind of being built to win, for the next few years. You got to get those pieces that are ready to contribute to a big league team soon.
There's not a bona fide consensus, like you mentioned, Paul Skeens or Bryce Harper level prospect in this draft. This is a 2-part question, but I'm asking them at the same time because I think you could answer them both simultaneously. Is this per se a weak draft or just a good draft without that legitimate number 1? And for a guy like Jace Laviolette, who's coming in next year, if he was in this class, would he be the number 1 pick, or is this draft strong enough that even like a real top-notch prospect a year away would just be in the mix, not head and shoulders above everybody else?
That's a good question. One with Jace, a guy that I got to see a ton in high school and know a lot about. I don't think he's in the top 2 here, just based on their ability to be patient and draw walks. I mean, the walk to strikeout ratio is just so insane with those 2 guys. I don't think he's in the top 2 picks. There's definitely not a tier 1 when you're talking about a Skeens or a Harper. But I will say this is going to be a very interesting draft because we've never seen guys hit with this power and this consistency ever. Like even the Besser eras, the drop 5 Besser eras, we weren't seeing the amount of guys that were flirting with 30 home runs, walking twice as many times as they struck out. It's a little scary, I actually think, for people at the top of the draft because it does look like there's a good handful of college bats. I mean, this is one of the best years for college bats since I've really started covering, a lot of this in the BB Core era, when it started, in 2011. It's just been insane, video game. I hate using that, but it is video game numbers when you're talking about 28 home runs and 68 walks or whatever it was, and you're talking about 37 home runs and 55 walks. Like that, we just haven't seen that by multiple prospects. And then you got a guy that's not probably in consideration unless he takes a discount, that's hit 30 home runs 2 straight years in the SEC. It's never happened. What do we do with that? So to your question, I actually really like this draft at the top of the class, and I like it because of the college bats. JJ, who I haven't mentioned, he's great. He looks like he's going to be good. We wish we had a little bit longer track record. I do think, if he would have got hot with the power, at some point he's in there. But you're talking about Braden Montgomery, who got hurt, who could have been, whispered in at number 1 with what he did in the Pac-12 and then the SEC in back-to-back years. So when you talk about that many bats, not a clear-cut Harper, but it's pretty exciting for whoever's picking at 2 and 3. So sorry for you guys, I guess.
So is the only reason that Condon and Bazzana aren't necessarily considered those can't-miss prospects the positions they play? Is that the only reason we're not looking at these guys as quote-unquote generational prospects?
I think, with Skeens, you saw him holding 101 with multiple plus pitches into like the 8th and 9th inning, 135, 140 pitches deep in the College World Series, which was head scratching. So I think he was a little different. Give the athleticism, give some of that stuff. But Harper was a little different because he was putting up similar numbers, the 30 home runs and all that different stuff. And remember, he went to college at 16 years old. So we're talking about guys that are 4 years younger. That's a big difference.
Okay.
Jered, we appreciate the time, man. Thanks for the insight. Draft again. It starts this Sunday. We're all looking forward to it. Thank you for joining us.
Yep.
Thanks, Jered.
Okay. Yeah, so yesterday he's high on both of our guys that we've had on the last 2 days did not take Condon as the first guy for the Guardians.
Both Bazzana.
No, yesterday it was he picked the pitcher, right?
Oh, Chase Burns.
Yeah. So
I'm conflicted because I've been hearing the Georgia kid.
That's Condon.
Yeah, I've been hearing him for so long, and I just kind of thought it was a layup. And,
Right.
and now he got me thinking of this
See,
Bazzana kid.
both the hitters, I don't think they're going to take a pitcher.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Would you be upset if they took a pitcher?
No, only because I don't follow college baseball closely enough. And especially, I've really only been paying close attention to these two guys in Wetherholt more than I wasn't even thinking they would consider a pitcher.
Jay
but-
likes Caglione, the guy out of Florida.
Yeah, he had a lot of hype. What he said about him made me nervous, and I've heard this before, is that he's got too much swing and miss right now.
Yeah.
Like, it might take him more time to develop, and these guys are both better contact hitters in addition to having power. So
who you take it? If you was making
No. He's gonna have to give that answer tomorrow on the show.
Oh,
so
I am?
don't give it
Oh,
away.
okay.
Who are you taking is the question.
he made a really good argument for the kid out of Oklahoma State.
Oregon State.
Or Oregon State,
Oregon
excuse
State.
me.
Bazzana.
I like the 30 home runs though.
Yeah.
With the
Well,
wood
he hit the home-
wooden bat though. Like that's the part that I was like
Well, he didn't hit 30 with the wood. He's
No.
I thought
shown,
he said he did.
he's shown power with wood in
yeah.
the Cape.
Well,
no,
they play in like Cape Cod League
Yeah.
and some other leagues.
But they only play like 15, 20 games.
I'm taking but what is his name?
Bazzana.
Bazzana. Taking
Not the
Bazzana.
Savannah Bananas.
He's-
The Travis Bazzanzas.
He's closer to the big leagues in his opinion. I mean, they probably both could be in the majors by next year.
Yeah.
Bazzana,
37 home runs in the
Bazzana, you
SEC
play
is
at second
crazy.
base,
I
and
know.
What's that?
37 home runs in the SEC is absurd.
That's
Yeah.
why I'm like
The problem with him is you don't know what position he's going to play.
Yeah.